This episode of our podcast is brought to you by Doulaban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage for your Tesla, give Doulaban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit their website at doulabaninsurance.com/Tesla. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tesla Owners Online Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Page, and I'm joined by my good friends Ian and Eric. And look we have some awesome guests here, Zac and Jesse from the Now You Know YouTube channel. Hey guys, how you been?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Excellent. Really want to say thanks for you guys for joining us. I know that everybody's nerves are being frayed right now with the whole shelter-in-place things, but some of us are starting to see some relaxing going on, and restaurants are starting to open and stuff, so cautiously getting back to things. So I hope you guys have been keeping busy. I see you're still putting out videos, which is awesome. I you know what? Honestly, I don't know of a harder working duo on YouTube than you guys. It's crazy.
Thanks.
I mean, the amount of work you guys put into stuff is awesome.
And,
So
and you're
I
not
thought
just out there
Sure.
blabbing. I mean, there's a lot of production that goes into the stuff you do with the green screen and the effects, and then it's like that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no green screen, actually.
No?
Oh, yeah, there is. Where's the green screen? On, like, all the last things, Velon the Disruptor. Oh, that's it.
He doesn't remember
I
any
don't
of it.
remember.
Look at him.
Not all of them, but yeah, a lot of them.
Not all of them, but you have used it. So awesome. Well, I thought I'd bring you guys onto the channel because we have a topic we want to cover a little bit later in the show regarding Tesla Semi and the whole Nikola thing. Now, if you guys haven't watched our show, we do talk a little bit of a Tesla news. Obviously, with things being a little on the quiet front, we have 2 or 3 subjects we want to get through. Once we're done with that, we'll just jump into the other topics. So the first thing I want to talk about is Model S now has an official EPA rating of 402 miles. What are you laughing at, Jesse?
Oh, who would have thunk? Wow.
Who'd have thunk? Yeah. So right here on the webpage, let me just bring it up. So those of you who are watching on YouTube, of course, if you're not watching on YouTube, you have to apologize. You'll have to check the show notes and look at a link if you want to watch the YouTube channel here, because we do an audio podcast of this thing here. So anyways, Tesla goes on to say that they've now EPA certified the Model S at 402 miles or 647 kilometers, which makes it basically the longest range EV available anywhere. They've attributed this to several different things. A significant mass reduction on the S and the X. This is through additional weight savings can all be achieved through standardization of in-house seat manufacturing. So anyways, the bottom line is to make a lot of changes on the car. They have some new aero wheels. They're calling them Tempest. So if you haven't seen those, they got these little black inserts. Quite attractive, if you ask me.
That right there is the biggest thing I think that's boosted the range on that car. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. Well, they did think on the Ravens too. They also changed the motors. They're a little more efficient, and they also changed the bearings. They have less resistance in the bearings, so that attributes to a lot of that stuff. Anyways, the bottom line is going back here is the EPA did test the car, but apparently they did a little goof up, and Elon was claiming, well, we have the log files, guys. You left the key fob in the car and the door open. So anyways, I guess they retested it.
Right.
It was close.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Well, how many times have people said things about Tesla, and Tesla goes, guys, we have log files.
Right.
Brodering. Remember brodering back in the day?
I don't remember.
I know.
Anyways, so congratulations to Tesla on that. And we've just seen the tip of the iceberg because we're going to see longer ranges on the Roadster and obviously the Cybertruck. I think that's attributed to some new battery inverter technology that we're going to see later on down the road. We're still waiting on the update plaid drivetrains on Model S and X, so that's still on track sometime later this year. So we're looking forward to seeing some of that. Anyways, the other rumor that's been going around here for some time, and this was spotted by our friend Zeus, who's also a friend of ours on Twitter with Green the Only. He got us. He got a Model 3 in factory mode and was able to discover somehow in there that the battery is showing 100 kilowatt hours of capacity. Now, Green the Only on Twitter, great hacker, by the way, if you want to follow him, he's got some really great stuff, had also spotted it some time ago. So this is the second instance of this. Now, not really confirmed whether this is actually true or not. Elon was very quick to get on Twitter and says, there is no plans for developing a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack in the Model 3. Now, he didn't specify when it was being developed.
Yeah,
So
the
a lot of
exact
people are
wording is key, right? He says there is no Model 300 kilowatt hour back in development.
Yes.
Right.
Make of that exact wording what you will.
Remember,
So-
Tesla, Elon is very familiar with the Osborne effect, and if you don't know what the Osborne effect is, please go Google it. It's a real thing. Jesse, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he could just. It's a 98 or it's
0.7.
101 kilowatt hour pack.
Yeah,
I
true.
mean, he's
True.
not lying if
Nope.
he says 100 kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible, but they don't need it at the
They
moment.
don't need it.
Well, the last thing you want to do is potentially cannibalize some more Model S sales because you're starting into some overlap territory, right? If you get a battery pack that's a third larger, 33% larger, and you calculate the range out, boy, you're getting close to a Model S. I mean, Model S is heavier, it's bulkier. Anyways,
I feel like they've already cannibalized it.
Yeah, they've cannibalized it a lot, and I mean we've seen that in the sales numbers. But
yeah.
yeah, if there was 100 kilowatt hour Model 3, I don't know who would be buying the Model S. I mean, people do like the Model S. Let's not dismiss it out of hand. But
True.
a lot of people, when they're looking at the numbers, they're saying like, got a lot more car with the Model 3.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the analysis would also look like the Model Y is not cannibalizing the Model X. Like they're totally different vehicles, are not in the same classes. Model S is a full-size car. Model 3 is more of a compact sedan. So it's hard to. Ideally, we can make the comparison because it is apples to apples within Tesla. But if the Model S was a different manufacturer's vehicle, then ideally those are two totally separate conversations because Model 3 is its own thing versus Model S. But because they're in the same family, they tend to equate them because, well, they're both sedans, which is true, but they're also very different cars in their DNA. So that, even if they were to have a lot of this, I agree with what you guys are saying, the suggestions of how Elon can sort of mince words a bit. I think we're delving into this a bit too much. It's entirely possible that what that photograph showed was just more of a test thing, not actually something they produced. The number could have been rounded up to 100, but for us to speculate, it's fun for fodder, but I don't know how real it all is. But I mean, yeah, the Model 3, the numbers tell you, like the number of reservations, the number of sales, number of deliveries, all of that tells you that Model S has taken a far second place backseat to the Model 3, regardless of what the battery pack is now or then.
Well, there's nothing that says that Tesla can't build a couple of mules with a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack through some chemistry changes. We know battery day's coming, and there's definitely some chemistry changes as far as the battery pack is coming. So they managed to stuff it into a couple of pre-production cars. Maybe they're not releasing anything. I mean, it did send out a tweet today reflecting this change and saying maybe after battery day. I mean, something's got to give at some point, right? I don't personally think that that the battery day thing is really going to affect 3 and Y, especially with the Y right now going into production. You can't make a change this soon, right? This is more for the Plaid Model S, Cybertruck, obviously, Roadster, all those future cars. And the thing is very much like they did a year ago, just over a year ago, when they introduced Hardware 3 in the cars. You can't just drop an autonomy day on people and say, oh, by the way, we're going to put this in the cars in 6 months. They were already in production at that point. So I think the same thing's kind of going to happen, at least with battery day. Now, there's been a lot of talk, of course, with this CATL that's been going on in China with the manufacturing in China going to largely cobalt-free batteries and lithium polymer. And of course, this million-mile battery thing may start in China because maybe Tesla doesn't have the manufacturing capacity to ramp up for the North American market. Maybe they can start in a smaller market in China, at least initially, and ramp it up. Anyways, we'll see what transpires. But I don't think these screens lie. There's a fact. I mean, they're reading something in the BMS that's reporting this at 100 kilowatt hour.
But to your point, Trev, about lying, the screen lying, did you take a close look at some of the other entries on that same screen? Like one of the comments, a few people did in the comments. I noticed as well that supercharging not allowed. Isn't that a bit weird? Like, what's up with that? Now, maybe it's because it's an experimental pack and they don't want to be blowing all this amperage into it. I don't know. I thought that was weird. And the fact that
just for the Richter Builds channel, probably.
Yeah, maybe that could be. And the fact it was a silver car, I mean, it's got to be an early build, right? Or like, why would they would they specially paint a silver one just for the purpose of the mule? Or did they repurpose an old car, as a test mule? I don't know. I just had some questions about that.
I'm just kind of looking at it right here. I don't see anything that really pops out other than the supercharging access. But again, I don't know. It could just be, like I said, just a test mule that they're playing around with. And I mean, we saw this stuff. I mean, back in the day when I got spy shots of a performance Model 3 on the track doing runabout testing, and everybody's like, "No, it's not a performance Model 3." I said, "Well, the red brake calipers and the acceleration is kind of a dead giveaway." And sure enough, 6 months later, there we are. We had the car. So, anyways, it's interesting. It's fun to speculate. Who knows what's going to happen? But I don't think we're going to see any changes at this point until Battery Day happens. And of course, we still don't know when Battery Day is going to happen. Elon's been pretty mum on the whole thing. So
that's why we came on here. We thought you knew when Battery Day was.
No, man. You know what?
Forget it.
Great, Trev. Great. 10 minutes and we lost them.
Look, a little speculation here. Let's have some fun with this because the next thing we're going to talk about is...
They're going to rebrand their channel. Now we don't know. Because you don't tell them.
There we go.
Right.
There we go.
Yeah, we don't know either.
We don't. Yeah.
Look, there's been a lot of talk, of course, about this next factory that Tesla wants to build. Our money's on Texas. Well, apparently, let me just bring up the article here, courtesy of our friends here at Tesla Roddy. Travis County, just outside of Austin, Texas. Texas officials are currently in the process of working out the details of an incentive deal with Tesla. Now, Tesla has been working with Texas as well as Tulsa, Oklahoma, trying to get the best deal possible to get a factory built. And of course, this is going to be for Model Y and Cybertruck, possibly some other cars as well. So they got to get hustling. If they want this car out in due time, they got to get moving here. So anyways, the Travis County Commissioner Court is reportedly meeting to discuss potential incentives later today. That's literally today on June 16th. The statesman reported the terms of the incentives will be discussed during the meeting, and a vote from the members of the Commissioner's Court will be held in the coming weeks. Now, it's been rumored for quite some time that Tesla's been looking at building something in Austin, Texas. Elon's been flying in and out of there. Basically, he wants to move his whole operation to Texas. We've talked about that before. Anyways, that's where I think that's what's going to happen. Now, he has let the cat out of the bag in the sense of, well, Battery Day will happen either in Nevada or Texas. So put that in between quotes. I mean, what if they just said, by the way, here's the announcement. We're going to build the Texas factory here, and let's talk, first phase of Battery Day, and kind of roll the two in together. I don't think they have the resources to do two things at once, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to be able to do both. But anyways, bottom line, this thing has to happen soon if they're going to start building a factory because, the U.S. doesn't move as fast as China as far as building stuff is concerned, right? Zac and Jesse, have you guys thought about this situation with Tesla in Texas in the sense that, it's pretty well known that Tesla can't sell direct in Texas, and their legislature meets, every 2 years to be able to vote on this issue. I always thought that Tesla would use this as a carrot in front of them, say, let us build a factory, but a little something for me is a little something for you type of thing, right? Is there any movement on that as far as like getting them to change their legislatures saying, okay, we'll build a factory here, but you guys got to let us sell direct already?
I mean, I think it might be kind of flipped. Elon might know that getting a factory there will mean that they will definitely have the political power to get that rule changed. So it might be instead of like do it first and then we'll come, it might be we're coming and we know that that'll be enough to push you guys over the edge because they've become a huge employer. That would be my guess. It would make Texas look really stupid if they didn't.
Yeah, they're saying here in the article that it could bring as many as 10,000 employees into the factory. So
yeah,
good for jobs. I mean, Texas. I mean, what better place to build a Cybertruck, right?
Exactly.
It's.
Go ahead.
Well, the problem too is that Texas has in its history done a lot of stupid things. So I wouldn't. My feeling has been, if I'm looking at the odds makers for this, I would say it's less than 50-50. It actually does happen in Austin, to the extent where Texas then sort of like magically disappears their restrictions on selling cars direct. Why they haven't done it yet as the carrot that leads Tesla to do that I don't understand. Having that meeting today that make that then the discussion sort of weird when you would think by now, if you want to entice Tesla into your state, you would have by now already said, okay, let's just get an ordinance in. Let's just pass this. Let's just be done with it. But we've seen by and large, time and time again, when major issues, and this is not really what I consider a major issue, but when major issues are afflicting the state of Texas, you tend to see a lot of legislators sort of sit idly by and see what their neighbor voters are doing. What's this, elected or official going to do? And then they're deciding to vote. And usually it's against the best interest of the populace. So I'm not very confident this works out. I'm hopeful it does, but truth be told, just history says this is not going to work out very well. And then you said, Tulsa may swoop in and be the backstop, but but who knows? But I've seen logic not prevail on more than one occasion in the state of Texas.
Sure, but I think that once you have Cybertrucks rolling off the line in Texas, and those are local news stories, and you have, Elon on the front cover in front of a Cybertruck, and people kind of understand, like, oh, it's a American-made bulletproof truck. I think that the support is gonna just come out of the woodwork for Tesla, and it's gonna be like, wait, so you're telling me I can't buy the truck in this state? Are you kidding me?
Right.
And I think that there's no lose once you've built the factory there. I mean, there's no lose. Let's assume going forward that Texas was never going to change their mind about direct sales. It's still a boon for Tesla to have the factory in Texas if that's where they want to have it.
Yeah, I'm just happy that no matter what state gets it, the fact there's going to be a new factory built and it's going to be American flag, American state, like that message needs to get out. I don't know how often this has happened to you guys, but traveling around in the car and people ask questions. Oh, that's one of those Teslas. Where is it made? And like, well, yeah, especially when I'm in the States, we're here in America. What? They're not from Germany? Like, how often have you got that? Like, it just amazes me that it's still not fully understood. So if nothing else, thank God, like a place like Texas, I mean, that is America in a little snapshot there. That's America. I mean, it's got to really resonate, that message. I'm really hoping that happens.
And I think that Tesla kind of has this. They had their iPhone moment, and now the problem is they still have this iPhone feel where you're just like, oh, it's like an iPhone, so it's probably from China, right? And of course, there are news stories where there is a Tesla China factory, so it's very easy to get confused and just be like, it's an iPhone of cars, so therefore it's made in China, just like everything else that comes from California. Not necessary. And even if it's built in California, you're like, if I'm in Texas, California is a completely different country. So it's being built in Texas is going to have a huge impact, I think, on Tesla's brand, especially in the middle of the country, and especially with Cybertruck, especially with those ranges, especially with everything to do with that. It's going to be a really smart move.
Yeah, we forget how often that we're in this bubble. Like, because we talk about it all the time, we think that everyone around us knows about it. I would guess that in America today, probably like 2% of Americans even know what the heck you're talking about. Even if they've heard of the brand, I think they would keep asking the question, like, where's it from? What is it? I just don't think they really know much about it.
The kids do, though. The kids do.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Everywhere. I mean, you don't.
One of the reasons I love driving.
A kid has to be living literally under a rock with no internet to not know what Tesla is.
Yeah.
Well, it's intriguing too, because I remember when one of my first cars was a Toyota Camry, but the car was assembled in Kentucky. So we think of the brand as a Japanese brand, but the car was actually made here in the U.S. So it's that weird thing that we know that Tesla sources a lot of its parts from outside the U.S., but the majority of the car, like it's basically built and manufactured in Fremont as it stands. So I agree with you guys on the Texas point. I mean, if they build a factory and then sort of like keep nudging the argument of like direct sales now, how about now? Maybe this year, maybe. I think that, okay, sure, that's helpful for the economy for Texas. Not that they need it. It's nice if they get it. Tesla will certainly get wherever it is. I mean, if they could build it in Biloxi, Mississippi, they could build it in, Bismarck, North Dakota. Like they can build it wherever they do it. If as long as it's in America, it's obviously good for Tesla and for the employees that live in that region. This certainly would be good news relative to their recent discussions of potentially just relocating Fremont altogether. That obviously would not be good. But yeah, I would think though that they were trying to nudge Texas into lifting that law before they even break ground. If they can do that, then that's obviously a win-win for everyone. That's what the hope is, rather than to have the factory built and then 2 years later it's open, they're starting to produce cars. And then, then the argument is, well, we've delivered 10,000 cars this year. How about now? Is now a good time? So
I just hope the factory, well, I think by all estimations, I know the Berlin factory is going to be larger than Fremont. I haven't really looked at any kind of potential plans because nothing's been leaked on the internet as far as that is concerned in the Texas factory. But I mean, even the Berlin factory is going in really fast right now. I mean, they've been pouring the footings for what looks like to be the large presses because they're below grade a little bit. So there's certainly some action going on over there. But again, Tesla's timeline for the Cybertruck is deliveries by the end of next year. So if they're going to start building, they got to get hustling because, I mean, building a shell is one thing, but the production stuff inside takes takes time, and then you have logistics and all the other things. So, anyways, I don't know how much the COVID thing has set them back. I mean, we really won't know until they release data. But so far at this point, I guess they're still holding on to the late 2021 delivery time.
I mean, if they build and deliver 5 cars, 5 Cybertrucks,
technically,
then it's true.
Well, my money's still 2022 for Cybertruck. Like real good deliveries of that car is really going to be 2022.
And you're definitely at least if they're going to deliver 5 cars in 2021, then yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
It was like Model 3, right? In July 2017. Well, we made 30 of them. Yeah. Here you go. Oh, by the way, production's still going to take another 6 months, guys.
Yeah, I mean I am a little bit worried because it is a completely different car. Like they really, I think, hit the ball out of the park with the Model Y with the large castings. When you're folding, I know that on paper it's easier. It's just we haven't made too many cars by origami before. Mm-hmm. I'm just a little worried that it's going to be like, oh, it doesn't fold the way we wanted it to, or like any one of those problems on a brand new piece of automated technology can really set you back in terms of months, not necessarily in terms of years and decades. But yeah.
Well, if you look back to the Model 3 production woes that they had, that was really scale.
Yeah.
They had a lot of problems with scaling. Now, they've learned a lot. A Model Y is certainly scaling a lot faster than Model 3 did, but that's leveraging 75% of your processes, learning what not to do. I think that will largely go into the Cybertruck as well. However, again, as you say, the production processes are different. So I think everybody needs to set their expectations accordingly with the car and expect delays, expect the usual quality control problems. Model Y right now, I'm sorry, is riddled with quality control problems right now that they really have to sort out. Even Ben Sullins is just literally going to put out a video. He has problems with his brand new car. So, there's something to be said about not buying the very first one off the production line.
Well,
that's why I waited. Yeah, I remember you guys had one of the first ones.
I was going to say, and it could be that this slowdown, as detrimental as it's been to the economy at large, that it could have helped companies like Tesla because they can sort of revamp their processes, look at the way they've been building out the cars, and try to rectify some of those issues that are being reported in these productions that are already been produced. And then, as those changes go into place, you improve the quality of the product moving forward. So it could be that a VIN delivered, 4 to 6 weeks from now may be vastly different than one of the earlier VINs, just because they've made some of those changes in the slowdown.
Speaking of which, excellent segue, Eric, because Model 3s being delivered soon, or actually right now, American ones, now have the USB-C ports and the charger that were shortly introduced a short time ago for the Chinese-made Model 3s. So we knew that when they made the changes to the Model Y going to USB-C, I mean, we were all like, okay, well, this is obvious. They're going to put it in a Model 3. It's just a matter of whatever kind of downtime. Obviously, that happened during the COVID shutdown at the factory. So now Model 3s, if you get one of the new ones, you're going to get USB-C ports in it and a wireless charger. So there you
don't have to flip those damn USB things anymore.
Yeah.
It goes in
USB-C
either way.
is the best thing in the world.
Is.
I literally just bought
how many revisions to get it right?
Well, Apple did it with the Lightning cable. So,
yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I literally bought a new camera and it's USB-C, and it's just like I can just plug it in blind. It's awesome. So, anyways, look for that if you're waiting for Model 3, or obviously with the new Model Y, you can get that. All right, so that covers our Tesla news. Now, I want to spend a little time talking about the Tesla semi-truck. Elon took to Twitter and, not to Twitter. There was a leaked email that came out, and it's been verified that it definitely happened. Elon has basically said that they're ready to start volume production of the semi-truck. Now, for those of you who may not be paying attention or have been watching for some time, Tesla originally unveiled the semi-truck. Was it December 2017, guys? You guys were there. I forget when it was. It was one of those 2 months.
November. Yeah.
It was November 2017. Yeah. That was the one where they
so.
pulled out the Roadster and everybody forgot all about the semi-truck, right? Anyways, yeah. So, and we've talked about the Semi many times on the podcast. The Semi is not like other Tesla cars. You can't just drop an unfinished beta-tested product or let the end customer be the beta tester. This thing needs to have millions of miles on it, be very well tested, because those customers will not tolerate breakdowns or problems or quality control problems. So they've been spending this time getting the truck right. Now, in conjunction with that, there's always been this underlying thing going on, which was supply of batteries. Tesla has been putting all of their money into Model 3, getting that ramped up. And now we have this other project that's been working internally for Battery Day, which is Tesla essentially building their own battery cells to try and remain somewhat independent or not quite as tied to Panasonic as they have been in the past. So I want your thoughts. Do you think that this secret project tied in with Battery Day and this news of semi-truck going into production is all tied together?
Yeah, I think the leak was just Elon getting frustrated hearing about Nikola One getting all this press, getting billions of dollars of investor money. And I think it was just a little like, just to remind everybody, especially the companies out there that just keep in mind with Nikola One, you and I can go put down a zero deposit for the truck right now. And that's what thousands of people and companies have done, right? Because there's no money down. And so Nikola One gets to count each of those trucks on their bottom line for some reason. And I think it was Elon's way of saying, hey, remember, we've got a truck coming out too. Don't forget about that.
And putting it in a leaked email makes it newsworthy.
Right.
Because he can put anything in a leaked email, and he's like, oh, I want carrots for lunch today. And then it gets leaked to the press, and people are going like, Elon eats carrots? What does that mean? 5 ways that business, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Two-letter tweets and entire articles come out.
Right. And
by some
but
parties,
some tweets he comes out with, and people are just like, they don't know what to make with them. So a leaked email is like
it's
a
got
super
the right
tweet,
words. Yeah, leaked
email, and he confirmed it in like an hour or something.
Right.
He was just like, yeah, that's true. I mean, I got to imagine that he was like, how can we get this message out to the. But I mean, yeah, I think that whatever the secret Battery Day stuff is going to have a lot to do with the semi-truck. I think that the semi-truck is going to have those batteries, whether they be the million-mile battery or whether they be something completely different. I mean, I have just tried to not expect anything from Battery Day while at the same time expecting, fusion, because I'm just so excited. I have no idea what it could possibly be. It could be anywhere between like, oh yeah, the batteries that we're putting in the Model 3s in China, that's our thing. Like they could do that, and we'd have to be like, oh, okay. And maybe they'd be like, there are many benefits. Here are the benefits. They don't catch on fire. They don't, they have a longer life, and they don't use cobalt. Those are 3 big things, and we might have.
That's not it.
Then we might have just hyped it up so big in our mind that we're expecting some kind of like graphene.
He said it would blow your mind, dude.
Yeah, right.
It's gonna blow your mind.
Yeah.
How many of you think that they're going to do something like Autonomy Day and have more of the engineers on stage? Like, here's Professor Jeff Dawn. He's the guy responsible for the testing of the batteries and developing this new electrolyte that prevents buildup.
Yeah, I mean, Elon really wants it to be an in-person day for some reason. Like, I really thought you could do this virtually, but I think he's waiting for a couple things. I think he's waiting for something to be finished, installed, and up and running. I'm guessing at Fremont. And I bet you because of COVID that's been delayed a lot more than he wanted. And so he just isn't ready to, because Tesla's not the kind of company that just has a chart on a screen behind you, or, they want, there's usually something actually physically happening. So my guess is that that's not actually quite running yet, and that's why he hasn't called for the day. Because
they don't just computer simulate. They don't just simulate a hammer hitting a car. They actually hit the car with that sledgehammer.
They actually break the windows.
They actually break the windows with massive steel balls. I think there's a lot of credit to what you guys are saying. I would add to that that they could treat this almost like it's a first date, where you're sort of just kind of guarding yourself. You're not revealing everything, but then there's that one moment where you finally go, now is the time, and you drop the bomb of the big bombshell, and that's the awe moment. No different than Roadster after Semi. Like, it was great when they had the Semi debut, and we're thinking, oh, that's it. It's amazing. You see it, like, wow, look at it. It's a pure Tesla. And then it's like, and one more thing. And that one more thing became the hyped up story after that.
The old Apple stagecraft.
Exactly. So it could very well be that's what's going to happen, where and I think it's good to have the scientists, the engineers, the analysts who are up there, because there's going to be the audience that wants to know the nitty gritty. Our friend Teslatino Raphael would be one of those who would sort of like saturate in the knowledge of all of the details of the coding and stuff behind this. But then at the same time, there's the layperson who goes, I just want to understand how far can I go with this and be able to tie the advancement in technologies. When the 2012 Model S had an EPA rating of 265, and in less than a decade, we're looking at cars that now can eclipse 400 EPA rating, which is amazing when it comes to battery tech. And now you're seeing the possibility of having a semi-truck towing its cargo and be able to drive 1 million miles over the life of its battery. Like that's amazing to think about when we have auto parts that, oh, my timing belt just went bad, or my radiator is going to go, my alternator is killing. Like just the thought of, I don't have to replace anything really for a battery for 1 million miles. And then after that, they could have another thing. But I think all of that could be the showmanship that Elon likes to portray.
Right.
So
I kind of. Oh yeah.
No.
Well, I was thinking, back when they debuted the Powerwall, and he shows that off the Powerwall, and then they talk about the Power Pack, and then they basically just pan the camera over, and they're like, "We're being powered by this Power Pack." I don't think that landed. No. Because I think that a lot of people were just like, "Those are big white boxes. I don't understand." Like, we weren't primed and ready for that. Mm-hmm. If Tesla did something like that with bidirectional charging, and he kind of unveils it, and it's a Model 3, or if it's a Model S, or even a semi-truck, and he's just like, and this whole event's being powered by this car, you'd be like, oh.
There's your reason to have it in person.
Right. Yeah.
It's a big deal. We have a Power Pack installation. I just found it here. I had heard about it over a year ago, that there was a Power Pack installation here in my neighborhood, 16 megawatt hours. Mm-hmm. And I found it. It's huge. Yeah. And it's enough to power 22,000 homes, they say, during peak periods. Amazing. So it's pretty crazy. They spent $12 million on it or something like that. Anyways, that's beside the point. Awesome. So listen, let's talk about the semi-truck a little bit more. Now, I heard through the grapevine, Zach, that you actually have a reservation for one of these things.
Yeah, I signed up that night. So we're number 85, I think, on the list, or 65.
Wow, 65.
65. Yeah. So, yeah.
We might get it before Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
Or Walmart or one of those.
So what are you doing? You starting a microbrewery? Like, what are you doing? What are we going to haul with this thing?
I mean, we've come up with so many stupid ideas to do with this truck. Like, we want to do
just for YouTube videos. Like, what do you
doing? I mean, that too. But like, we want to, first of all, drive around the country and show off. We want to get people. Butts and seats is our big thing. So like, we want people to experience this. We want truck drivers to drive it. We want people to open their minds to it. And I think the only way to do that for a lot of people is to see it in person. Yeah. So that's one of our big things. We're going to be driving it all over the place.
Yeah, I want to break other semi trucks. Get big, just one of those big rigs, the giant tubes coming up, and just destroy it.
Yeah.
With our not hit it, but pull it and have the engine jump out of it, or whatever they do whenever
So it's a philanthropic thing.
Yeah, and also, partially, but I mean, we also want to have like concerts where the stage unfolds in the back of the semi and it's all powered by solar and power packs.
That's good. That reminds me. So you're still doing the music thing, right?
Yeah. We've got own a music publishing company. We've got a recording studio. Although most of the recording studio is taken over by our YouTubers, editors and stuff now. But occasionally we have artists in there, and so music is always in my heart. So I just think it'd be great. Like, I mean, Deadmau5, for instance, he wants a semi. I'm like, let's just do your next tour, dude, with a semi truck.
Right. And I mean, I want to do a big camper, like a big, full trailer camper, fully solar powered, off grid. Because I mean, if we could start to show like you could buy a house for, $300,000 to $500,000 to $1 million, or you could buy a really big trailer to go with your semi truck, and it would cost maybe $300,000 in that range,
and then when you get tired of your neighbors,
you leave, just to get people thinking in different ways, because we always kind of do these things that show what can be possible, where people will drive across whole countries just on solar power, or like the Clean to Antarctica, where they almost made it to the South Pole, only on solar. And it's like, you're just showing that things can be possible. So that way you might, as a normal person, might be like, oh, I'll get solar on my house. It'll be kind of like that, except it's to run my microwave, or whatever.
Right. No, I mean, I just think, we think, of course, this makes sense for truck drivers, but there's so many truck drivers that we've talked to who are they haven't, first of all, even heard of it, or if they have heard of it, they've got so many objections that aren't real objections. They're just
it's like
well,
early days of Model S all over again,
Exactly. So, I mean, being able to just show, like, dude, I just got here and I didn't have to charge all day, like, would be enough to make them go, what? And that's what we want to do.
So Tesla's also been very quiet on the mega charger front. Any concerns about that? I mean, you'd think that they would start deploying that stuff if they were ready to put the cart. You can't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, but I think they're going to do partnerships with companies where say Walmart or Anheuser-Busch is going to agree to, either have Tesla help carry some of that cost, or maybe, some partnership so that they put them in at, either end of a route. Because I agree with you. I don't think that Tesla, it's not a money thing. I just don't think that the grid can handle in many places putting in that much charging dedicated to one truck at a time.
You'd probably need large battery banks.
Here's Ian with a comment.
Yeah, kind of like Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
Problem, Trev?
Yeah.
Rings a bell. But yeah, can I just imagine when you start talking about the mega charger, holy smokes. I mean, entire towns are going to go dim when these guys plug in.
Well,
like the Griswold with Christmas lights.
And that's why it makes more sense to have charging that you may not have to draw that much at once. So if you're at the end of your route for the day and you have more time, then it won't have to pump out as many kilowatts. And I'm guessing in the beginning they're going to have to do stuff like that because, our grid, let's just, I don't know about you guys up in Canada. You probably have a great grid, but because you give us most of our power actually here where we are today.
Do sell you a lot.
Our grid is the worst. It is running, just on a thread. And I think we all just seem to think that like, oh, we've got this state-of-the-art grid. No, we do not. It needs a lot of help. Yeah. And utilities have no incentive to work on it.
Right. And I mean, that's where the battery packs can come in because you can trickle charge the battery pack, then you pull in the truck and you dump the power. And the rest of the time, that battery pack can be stabilizing the grid. And as we've seen in Australia, and Australia is a perfect example because energy prices are so high, but it kind of is a moneymaker to just have the battery. So you could say like Walmart or Anheuser-Busch or any of the company like Pepsi, I think ordered one, and you could just be like, hey, part of buying this truck is going to also mean putting in a mega charger, and part of putting in a mega charger is going to be putting in a large battery facility. But that's going to pay off over a pretty short amount of time.
Right.
It'll definitely be interesting because I mean, if you plug in, to a regular wall outlet to charge your semi truck, you're going to be waiting a while. I want to do that. That'd be a good video.
That'd be a great video.
Like on a 120 circuit, like how many weeks does it take to charge?
Oh, like 4 months.
15 amps, right? Yeah.
The beard gets long.
Yeah. Day 18 here.
I was going to say, you think the quarantine's bad now? Wait until you can't drive your car for a few years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, it will have a giant range too, because I mean, it's supposed to have up to 500 miles,
500 or 600 miles, fully loaded. Imagine unloaded,
pulling 80,000 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where I want to do, a cannonball run in that thing. I know you just did one up in Canada with the Model 3, but I mean, imagine not stopping.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd like that. I think I wouldn't.
You need a lot
keep
of
your
bottles.
windshield washer bottles handy. You might need them.
Yeah.
Any plans on like regular range or long range semi truck? Like, what do you?
So yeah, there's the base model 150. I would like the long range because I just think that then
go big or go home.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not every day you decide to buy a semi truck that's never been made before.
I mean, it's not that expensive. I just want to put this in perspective. It's 150 for the starter truck and 180 for the.
That's how much the Model X was a couple of years ago.
So I mean,
for the base model,
and you can lease this thing out. I mean, we've had so many truck drivers who are like, dude, I'll drive that for you. So yeah, just
make some money.
Truck leasing company. Now you know leasing.
That was my next question. Does one of you guys have a Class 8 license?
We're planning on getting one of us getting a trucker's license. We've looked into it, and I mean, I think we'll do a video thing about it when we go to do that. I'm all for it. The only problem is that most of the classes I've talked to, most of the schools, only let you take a class with their truck, and I don't want to learn how to double shift and double clutch and all that stuff. I want to just be in the Tesla truck. So we're going to have to find a school that
want to put in drive and press the pedal.
Because it'll have like a button to do backup. Like that's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about the trailer jackknifing and stuff. I just press the button and let it do its thing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that'll be a game changer, actually.
I keep forgetting that it won't allow you to jackknife, that the semi-truck, because it has the 4 motors, it's going to be able to torque vector steer and prevent jackknifes. I don't know if we're going to test that particular feature when we get the truck.
We're not going to enter ice truckers and go for that.
It sounds like something. It sounds like something Kyle would be up to testing.
Kyle will drift the hell out of that thing.
Yeah,
he will drift anything if you give him the chance.
The crazy thing is, without any load, it will accelerate as fast as my car.
Yeah.
And I drive a Model 3, and it's just like, that's insane. Like I think that if you put a trucker in just the cab and just say like, go for it, they would have so much fun. It's the same as it's the same as any Tesla, really, except that you have to keep in mind that like it's just going to be a completely,
it'll be a new experience. I mean, no one's ever, you picture this thing only going a certain speed your whole life. Like, you're on the highway and you're picturing these trucks getting onto an on-ramp, and you
I was just about to say that.
And this is going to change all that.
Frustrating it is to be behind these stupid things.
Yeah.
Just trying to get
Well,
them to
you know what?
accelerate.
The other problem too, in this, we talked about the power grid being sort of archaic here in the U.S. The way we handle transportation, by and large, for freighting products is very archaic, right? It's, you're using train systems, which is really the fastest way of getting something somewhere. You can certainly air freight some stuff, but that's not cheap for a lot of companies, especially if it's heavyweight. So usually it comes off of a train. You take it off the train car, you put it on the back of a truck, and you drive away. And the problem is you have a lot of drivers who don't get paid very well in the different markets they're in. They tend to drive a very large number of hours relative to them actually getting rest. We see a lot of accidents involving these vehicles because they can't stop in time. There's other drivers in passenger cars who sort of cause the accidents because they cut them off and all these different things. So ideally, the transportation system when it comes to cargo is not the safest system we have. And for all the different things that Zac and Jesse are mentioning here in terms of the safety features, the functionality, the speed, the performance, et cetera, you need to revolutionize it. So a lot of these drivers, to Zac's point, once you put them in the vehicle, once you actually get the butt in the seat and let them experience it firsthand, they start to equate the things you actually tell them. But by and large, when you just have the conversation and say, well, here's what this vehicle can do, they don't understand what that means because they've never, ever had that experience. Every truck they've ever been in has largely been the same kind of cab. Maybe one you can, sleep in the back and one you can't. But ideally, like, there's the same truck. So once you have your Class A license, that's it. You're good to go. And now you're talking about, as Zac pointed out, with these schools going, well, if you're going to learn, it's going to be on this specific rig. Well, if you're going to have now an electric rig, which is a totally different vehicle experience to begin with, your schools now have to also adapt to that experience, whether it's with Nikola or Tesla or anything else. So yeah, this is really going to revolutionize how we handle the entire grid sector for electricity, how we handle with the trucking systems, how we handle transportation of products. But that's warranted. It's long overdue, but we need to do that. And for the layperson, they just kind of, if you're not in this circle of network that we're in with electric vehicles and everything else, like, we know this stuff because we live it all the time. But to the average person, it's complete fodder for them. They don't even know what that is.
It's a perfect market ripe for disruption.
Yeah. And here's the thing. One word. Autopilot. It's going to completely change the game. Can you believe? I can't believe when I'm on the highway and I'm in autopilot and I'm looking over at a truck that trucker has been driving all day with his hands, and I'm just like, I couldn't do that. I mean, I maybe for a day or a week I could, but after that I'd be like, forget that.
Right. Just
having the truck have autopilot, just having that experience of being like, yeah, I got to where I wanted to go and it wasn't completely beat. So beat, because I mean, like, it's hard enough to drive a Tesla. Oh, I'm driving my Tesla. It's so hard to drive all the time. I don't have to tell. I don't have to shift.
That's me. No, that's me. Actually, we're driving down to North Carolina. We did 12 hours, and like in autopilot, it's nothing. But the second you have to drive for a few minutes,
you're like, oh my brain hurts. I mean, all these truckers are going to just be like, this is amazing. Yeah. You don't understand it. They're going to be at the truck stop, supercharging, if they even stop, and they're just going to be like, guys, look at, like, I'm awake right now. I'm not like a zombie because I've been driving so hard. And that's one thing. Plus, if Tesla can implement their, the
The convoys.
The convoy
The
mode.
convoy,
I mean,
yeah,
it's all over. Like, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
we haven't even started talking about the economics of it. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you guys talk a lot about all of this, but it's just like, even for me, it's hard to fully picture each monumental change that it's going to make.
Right.
Yeah, I think the trucking industry is going to have a real wake-up call when this thing hits the roads. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled F-E-Y-N-L-A-B, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla. We were meant for each other. All right, well, it brings me to the next thing, and one of the reasons I brought you guys onto the show here is to talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is Nikola. They've been getting a lot of headlines this week, and I think it's our duty to actually have a look at this whole situation and really call a spade, because, you know, we've all been involved in the Tesla community for a number of years now, and the last 2.5 years have been pretty brutal. With the Tesla Q crowd. Those are the guys that are always shorting Tesla and making up all kinds of lies and stuff and calling Tesla every name in the book, and Elon's a liar, but as it turns out, we know the truth. Tesla is the real deal. They're developing all kinds of new products. They have products they're shipping. They're profitable. I mean, it's taken them a long time, but now they're there. And we've got a company over here that just went public who basically have no products on the roadmap. Well, they have products on the roadmap, but they're not shipping anything right now. We have a CEO who's young, who's very brash, who fancies himself an Elon Musk, the next Elon Musk. The moment the company went public, he cashed in $70 million worth of shares and stepped down as CEO. And he's pretty brash on the internet, and there's a lot of talk about this company, and I want to have this discussion today because if there's anything that Tesla Q should be looking at in terms of a real fraud, is probably these guys. So I said it, sorry. These guys rub me completely the wrong way. This Trevor Milton guy rubs me the wrong way.
The whole Tesla Q thing is that they are backed by big oil. And I mean, let's just call that what it is. I mean, you can't keep shorting a stock for as long as Tesla was shorted unless you have backing. And that was big oil's play, because every day that they can keep Tesla from selling you a car is a day that they've won. So the reason they're so excited about Nikola One is it's a fossil fuel play. Hydrogen is made from natural gas, and that is why it's a fossil fuel play. Now, you can get hydrogen other ways, but let's just talk about the efficiencies, and let's talk about the CEO of Nikola One. He's not a first principles guy. He's a salesperson, and he's done a great job of selling this idea. But hydrogen is nowhere near as efficient as batteries.
It's actually worse than gasoline.
Exactly. So you can sell it however you want, as, you know, this clean energy or whatever, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you compare it if you have electric batteries up and running. So his argument would work maybe in a world where there was no Tesla and where there was no talk of electric, vehicles, but there is that world. And the thing is, most of these people who are getting into this company either don't know about Tesla, and so it sounds great, wow, this great clean fuel that I've never heard of, or they haven't done the quick science to show that it is completely inefficient. And then his proposition that, I'll just build out this network with the money I'm getting from all these people buying the trucks. There's so many weak links to his argument and to his business proposition. The first being that you don't have to put any money down to get the truck. I mean,
speaking of which, I'm going to go and place a reservation right now as we talk.
There you go. You just added to the bottom line.
You know what? 10.
Yeah,
I'll order 10.
10 for me. Perfect.
All right. I'm gonna do it right now. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'm going to put 10 reservations down for a Nikola One.
And there you go.
Nobody
And
down. No harm done.
They're gonna count that on their bottom line to shareholders, and it's gonna keep going up too for a while. It's gonna be, wow, look at this. As the news went out and people went to their website and saw, wow, I can put money down on the truck too.
TeslaOwnersOnline.com.
There you go. Perfect. What color is yours gonna be?
I don't know. I don't think this thing's ever going to ship. So what matters? What difference does it make?
It's going to be vapor colored.
Yeah,
hydrogen blue.
Yeah.
Blue.
Champagne dream.
But I mean, big oil needs you to get behind this because they need to sell a product and they need to sell hydrogen, and that is their big play. And it's a wonderful sounding story. It's clean, so pumps in fast. So it sounds great. It's just that it doesn't work out when you do the math.
Right.
I mean, there have been auto manufacturers that explored going with the hydrogen route. I think it was Honda or Toyota at some point was thinking of like fuel stations for hydrogen, and that project died as fast as it came up because it's not a viable solution. It's extremely costly to implement, and it's just yeah. I mean, the other thing I think about too with your point, Zach, is when you're looking at competitors. To me, if Tesla's advancement in technology, whether you look at just their overall coding, their software, the batteries, whatever it is, they have blown away any potential competition for at least the next 10 years. Because any company who's trying to get caught up is going to really have their work cut out for them. But even with Tesla saying in the outset, listen, we're going to make our patents available for the public, just like Volvo did when the seatbelt patent came out back in the 60s, because ideally they knew it was for the greater good. So companies have at least had access to some of the same information that Tesla's been producing with their patents, but everyone's like, that's a niche thing. It's cute. It's not really fundamentally sound. But now they've proven after more than a decade, no, it kind of is fundamentally sound. And when you're trying to find alternates to Tesla, the answer doesn't mean, well, let's go with a different energy source because they've got the battery part down. We got to do something different. What is possibly out there that you could do differently that has not already been explored by somebody else before that is as viable or greater than battery technology? I don't understand what that is. And so
it's the purest form of energy storage.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. But the problem is when you see stars that use hydrogen and helium and they die, and they, our own sun and our own, solar system will eventually gobble up the earth and eradicate everything on it, which is it 2021 yet? These things could certainly happen anytime, but it's a fool's errand to think that you're going to come up with a product that is a viable competitor to Tesla if you're not using battery technology. When there are ways using hydropower, wind power, or solar power to create the energy necessary to recharge the car, that naturally you can't just look at the air, breathe in or breathe out and go, well, I got hydrogen. If I just breathe into my battery pack, I'm good to go. Like, that's not how that works. It takes a lot of energy to make hydrogen to be able to fuel it into a car, to channel it that way.
It's completely, utterly inefficient. I mean, we all know hydrogen's the most prevalent thing in the universe. The problem here on planet Earth is hydrogen's bound up in everything. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't float around. So you literally have to take elements, whatever, and break it apart. That requires electricity. Now you have this hydrogen. Yeah, okay, you have oxygen too, but now you have to store it. You have to densify it because you don't want to transport it as a gas. It's too flammable. Now you got to transport it. Now you got to store it. Then you put it into the vehicle. Then you got to convert it back through a fuel cell process to store the energy again into a battery and then consume it. I mean, these are all these steps. It's crazy.
You know who knows that very well? Elon Musk, because he runs SpaceX. And you know what they need to launch rockets into space? Liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. How easy to do that? It's not easy.
Can't use batteries, but it's the only thing they have. But
it's not easy.
No. Well, the thing is, and just like Zach said, all we're doing with the hydrogen thing is we're just changing from a fossil fuel economy to a hydrogen economy. They just want to keep selling the same stuff. Have you looked at how much it costs? I mean, there was an article that was running around, or somebody was saying they had a Toyota Mirai, right? The fuel cell car.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to trade it in, and nobody wants the damn thing because it costs too much to fill the tank. And the resale values are in the toilet. How many hydrogen filling stations are in the U.S. total? I think it's 29 the last time I checked.
How much?
Yeah,
and they're all in California.
They're all in California. I have a friend who lives in California, and he's buying a Mirai. And I was like, why are you doing that? He's like, it's so cheap to buy the car. I'm like, okay. And then where are you going to fuel it? And he's like, well, there's a station right down the road. And I'm like, okay. And when you move back over here, you're going to have to sell it, and it's not going to be worth any more money because there's going to be more Model 3s on the road, and no one is going to be thinking of hydrogen as a valid thing. And as soon as they close down the hydrogen fuel station next to your house, then
nobody wants them next to their house.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, I can charge my car by putting solar panels on the roof of my house.
You can't make your own hydrogen.
Make hydrogen. I mean, I could, and that's where some people kind of are just like, I could make my own hydrogen.
Bob
and then
Lazar
I
did
can
it.
put it in the car. and because they're the same people who are like, batteries are too complicated to make, but electrolysis, that's something you just put it in.
Right.
You just stick the 2 leads in the water and you're going. So they're just like, I can do that. And that's where I think that, we're used to having a tank to fill things in with, and making the tank is not that complicated unless of course you want to store hydrogen. But it's just that mindset of like, I can fill the tank and then I can use it.
That's exactly it. Fossil fuel companies want to keep selling you something at a service pump, and that's how they keep you stuck to them. And they know that as soon as you get onto an electric car, you're no longer stuck to their pumps.
And they can monopolize it. I mean, it's if there weren't different, fossil fuel and companies, then you'd have a monopoly, and it would be very, very expensive. And that's what Nikola One could do. They could just be like, okay, we've sold all the trucks and we built all the infrastructure, and now guess what? It's twice as expensive to buy our hydrogen.
Well, that's what they're hoping for. They're going to have a monopoly on the stations, is what they hope.
Well, and to me, the problem with all of this, it comes down to the greed component. I mean, the idea of actually having natural energy resources that nature provides us and using those to be able to power our electrical grid, to be able to charge our vehicles, to do all sorts of different things, that's relatively free energy and low-cost energy. We're now seeing that the production of solar panels, using wind turbines, even some hydropower stations, to build those out is actually so much less expensive than it used to be, because we're producing the technology at such a rapid rate that, if we were to incentivize those resources the way that we incentivize wheat production, corn production, fossil fuel companies, then that would be super freaking cheap. There's a reason why your Big Mac is more expensive than some of the healthier things you buy at the grocery store, because that's where the government is putting its funding, which is to make that stuff cheap and accessible. You can't buy breakfast cereal without looking at the ingredients and saying high fructose corn syrup. It's practically everywhere, right? So the idea is, if the electric companies and the oil companies sort of like got together in a room and you were to kind of listen in the conversations, you would see they're trying to formulate every which way to survive, just survive. And the way to do that is to make sure you're getting the government on your side. You're just going to dump lobbyist money after lobbyist money after lobbyist money at them, trying to make sure that you're getting people buying into what you want to keep your sustainable program going. Even though when you use that term, it's not the sustainable that you'd want it to be done, because all you're looking is self-sufficiency and self-survival. And that's a problem.
To your point, $5 trillion of subsidy every year. You wonder why we're still on fossil fuels. It's because it's being subsidized. If there was a level playing field, we would be leaving it in droves.
Elon's been saying that for so long.
When I'm investing in a company, I look at the CEO and the leadership structure. And let's just look at these 2 leaders here, right? You got Nikola One, where he cashes out on the first day. You got Elon, who says, don't pay me until I make you a gob of money.
Right. Mm-hmm. And has consistently, through thick and thin, put all of his resources and sometimes his relationships to put in more money just to keep his goals alive.
Right.
And ultimately, they do have a destination, and they're very long term. I mean, he wants to have life on Mars, and you can't just do that by being like, I'm going to launch myself to Mars. That's not what he wants. He wants many people to be on Mars, and that's so far out of the scope of what anyone generally thinks about. That's where I think the magic of Elon is that he's a long-term planner, and the moves that he's making don't always seem to make the most sense until you look at it in the broader scheme of things, and you're like, oh, a fully sustainable Earth, sending resources to Mars to become a fully sustainable Mars. Now you have 2 planets. Cool. We've never had that as a human society.
So I'm curious.
Well, even like compare. Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
No, I was going to change the subject. So if you want to continue, keep going.
Well, the one thing I was going to say, like, if you look at their mission statements for the 2 different companies, Tesla's ultimate mission is to, really accelerate the world to using sustainable energy, whereas Nikola's mission is to transform the transportation industry and make their employees' lives and the world a better place to live. Like, that's great, but like, what does that entail? Do you mean like everyone's going to be richer? I mean, like,
I don't want to live in a world where your version of a better place is better than my place.
Right. Like, I mean, everyone's going to get a free truck reservation. Like, I don't understand what that means. And, look, some of these criticisms may have been sort of, at the outset with Tesla too, when Elon sort of tried to do this, but there's a very, very different approach in the first 30 days of this all happening, when clearly it's like, oh, I'm going to cash out now because the money is there. You know, and we've mentioned on the show, I'm just going to say this, we can move on, but I've certainly posited a number of times that it is bothersome for me that the Wall Street analysts and people who look at Wall Street numbers, all they want to see is a company's reports, and that then drives the conversation about how well or how poor something is doing. So if Nikola can say, hey, we've got 400,000 reservations in the last 24 hours, right, but if you got zero money behind it, what does it actually mean? And Wall Street goes, well, that's great. Look at the reservations they have.
Yeah. Oh, looks like we had... All right, so I want to go back. I want to take a few moments here and just look at the product mix, because if you remember, Tesla started with literally zero. They had a Roadster. They basically survived on a little bit of investor money, mostly Elon, because he invested, $75-80 million of his own money long term. And then by necessity, they went public in 2010. Now, you got Nikola here, who has a very flashy website. Got to say that. It looks really nice. If you look at their hydrogen, they have 4 vehicles. Nikola 1, a Nikola 2. I'll talk about the name Nikola here in a second. Which are 2 semi-trucks, actually 3 semi-trucks. So they have one with a sleeper, one with a day cab, another one with the European cab, which is more the flat front truck. They got this new thing called a Nikola Badger, which is, Cybertruck ripoff, if you ask me, as far as I'm concerned. And then they have this plan for some power sports vehicles. So basically a Nikola NZT. Isn't that the name of a drug or something? Anyways, something called a Reckless and a Nikola Wave, which is a wave runner, all supposed to be, well, I think the power sports ones are supposed to be battery powered. Fully electric. Yeah, electric. So the hydrogen really is more the vehicle sectors. And they like to talk about, of course, their hydrogen stations, which are fancy digital renders at this point. Listen, these guys haven't produced a single vehicle yet. They have a handful of prototypes that have been driving around for testing. That's all fine. But I think the valuation of the company is based on a product roadmap that doesn't exist in real life at this point. Not to mention... This is the biggest problem I have, is that they're running off of Tesla's coattails. Now, if you listen to Trevor Milton talk, anytime he chance, he names the company Nikola after Nikola Tesla. So I'm sure he would have called himself Tesla had he thought about it first. So now he goes with the first name. Second of all, he compares himself to Elon every chance he gets. I don't know. I'm done. Talk about this. I'm done. I can't stand this guy.
You're not going to have to worry about it. It's not. It's going to implode so fast. Their runway is so short. They're going to be spending money so fast, and the amounts of money they're going to have to ask for investors to keep the runway going are so large that unless they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, their money's going to dry up pretty fast. And so you won't have to worry about this guy for too long.
They're like the XFL of automaking. Like, it's cute, it's niche, you think it's totally different, it's innovative, and then all of a sudden they play 5 weeks and they disappear. So,
as I said at the beginning of the show, before we went live and started recording, we've all been in the Tesla community for a long time. We've talked, we've been battling this Tesla queue, these short sellers, and we know the truth about Tesla. They are always been the real deal. They have the right product mix. They have a path. They're executing properly, and we got this company over here who's brand new, who if anybody needs to be shorting a company, if that's your thing, that's what you need to be looking at, because this thing doesn't. It's a house of cards as far as I'm concerned. Right. It's just not going to go anywhere.
Can we also, by the way, stop calling them Tesla Q and just call them Teslackers?
To slack?
To slackers, because they're a bunch of slackers. They're sitting at home, just hitting,
sitting in their mother's basement.
Maybe
it's a lot of trolls too. I mean, the reason it keeps going is that there's a large movement behind it. It's not it's not like a grassroots thing or something.
Right. It's an army.
Yeah, it's fed by. We got to talk about who stands to gain here. It's any country or companies that will make money off fossil fuels. So we're talking you, Russia. We're talking you, ExxonMobil. Like, we're talking all these big companies that are going to put some money towards this, because a few $million here and there is money well spent for them.
Right. And it just sucks because it would be very beneficial for Tesla to have actual critics. And I mean, like, real critics, people who can point to things and say, like, hey, this
the service center problems and so forth.
Right. Like,
well, we know for firsthand, being involved with Tesla, they're not perfect. No. It's okay to love a product and not like what the company does all the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. But the problem is, as soon as you admit any problem, the Tesla shorts will jump down your throat and just
Of
be like,
course.
he told you. And therefore, Elon is actually a figment of your imagination. They'll come up with whatever they're going to say.
Right.
And so by not having a real conversation, it's just, luckily Tesla is doing a pretty darn good job. But if they started to move in a direction that was negative, it would be hard to correct it, because it's like the boy who cried wolf. Anyone who has negative things to say about Tesla, you can just kind of be like, oh, you must be a Tesla hater. I experience it with the YouTube channel all the time. You get, comments from people, and you're just are you this dumb, or or misinformed? Like, do you not understand this? Or have you been sent by someone, or are you a bot, or are you a troll? And it's just like, instead of having real conversations, most of the time, I just get bombarded with crap and like, whoa, this is oddly similar to something that other guy had said. Oh, it's verbatim. Oh, that's troubling. And you're just like, whoa. So yeah, it would be nice if some Tesla shorts could kind of break off and say, we're still Tesla shorts. Tesla is going to fail, but hey, also Nikola is going to fail. If I saw that, I would at least be like, okay, this Tesla short person might have something that I would want to listen to. And because it is important to check your perspective with other people, it's just like, when you're checking it against insanity, it doesn't work so well.
Right.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that insanity out there. I mean, there's
Yeah.
people out there in the Tesla Q movement that just have an absolute hatred of Elon and everything he does, and that just fuels their hatred.
I mean, I love everything Jesse's saying, and the other part of this too is, there are a lot of folks who really sort of drag Tesla through the mud solely because they don't like Elon. It's not about what Tesla's doing. It's not about their vehicles or their battery packs or anything else. It's just that, he could do something that we believe is noble and good, like going to Puerto Rico after the storms and, bringing power to the island. And then someone could say, why would he do that? Why is it temporary? Why isn't he doing this to me? No matter what he does, whatever misstep there may be perceived, whether it's right or wrong, there's always people waiting with their hands on their keyboard, just going, okay, now they're going to salivate and find a thing and go after it. Even if it's completely false, even if it's completely untrue, they're going to be like, all right, well, I'm here for this. Let's just go. And a lot of times, to Jesse's point, they're just there to sort of start the wave going. They're the guy in the baseball stand, just kind of standing up with their hands up in the air, and everyone and people are looking around like, okay, who's going to follow me? And it grows very quickly. That is, by and large, what that community is like. And, when I think about the comments I see on YouTube about me, for example, usually it's, Eric, you talk too fast. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Or you're too loud. I'm Hispanic. I can't help it. So I'm going to try to do that. But if someone were to come after me with a way that's like, what? I don't know you. Why are you being so mean to a complete stranger on social media?
It's too easy on the internet.
But the thing is, when you see public figures like Elon and people that work for SpaceX, Tesla, etc., those people who are just in there doing the hard work day in and day out, trying to improve the quality of life for people around the world, and you decide to sit behind a keyboard and just blast them for no apparent reason, things that you would never say to your mother, things you wouldn't say to your wife or your spouse, your significant, but you would actually go on a keyboard and say that degrading comment about a person. Look, you may be right. There may be some truth to some things that where they make a mistake, we, even in the community, will sort of call out, I don't think Elon's a god. And there are times he's made mistakes, and I've said so. The issue with the cave issue that happened overseas in Asia, like that was not great. There were certain things he said in the last several months about COVID, also not great. But the reality is, he, like everyone else, is a person and can make mistakes. If he stands up and says, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, okay, we move on. But there are a number of people who just the minute something, there's a fire up, see, there you go. You can't trust those cars. They're all going to burn. Like it's the everything now in 2020 is extreme. You either have logic and you understand the way things work and you can have sound reasoning, or you're the opposite of that, which is everything is hell. We're just going to burn everything. And go ahead.
To your point, Eric, a lot of this is because the social media platforms that we use are designed to make us all into monkeys throwing crap. Right. Twitter is great if you have a feed with people you respect on it. But as soon as it's open to everyone, right? So people can just jump on your feed and start throwing crap, and that's what gets them what they want, which is the most views and attention. So we've designed a system that gives the most attention to the people who can throw the most crap, and that's why I'm honestly not on Twitter that often, because as much as I think the platform has value, I don't want to take all that crap.
Right. And we like to have nuanced discussions. I mean, this podcast, for example, we're able to get our thoughts and feelings across. We're not limited to, 280 characters now. And I think that the other problem is that Elon is weird. And he has to be weird in order to do what he does. Like, let's be frank. Like, some normal guy, like, oh, hey there, Tom. Like, hi, I'm Tom. Like, he's not going to be running the, Tesla and SpaceX the way that Elon is, because Elon he is a quirky guy, but people don't like that. Right. And that is one very easy attack vector, as Elon likes to put it.
What's wrong with his speech pattern? How can he do presentations properly? It's not Steve Jobs. Like, he's gone. Right. What do you want? What do you want?
Yeah, and I think that it's just every little chink in Tesla's armor is so easily exploited by people who can attack by the Tesla Q community.
But intelligent people are looking for what we're doing right now: long form conversations. Why do you think Joe Rogan just signed, a $100 million deal? Because people are hoping that we are getting away from this world where we just send out these stupid little thought bubbles. We want actual long form thoughts, and this is fantastic that we're on here today.
Partisan politics. Through the news media too, is completely corrupted. As far
as we create these bubbles because we've grown accustomed to Zach's point, the way social media has been structured, which is you're going to first find things that are of interest to you, and then you find voices who support your politics, your thoughts on the world, whatever they may be, and then you start finding more people who echo the same things you believe, and next thing you know, all you hear is that echo chamber. You don't hear any discerning voices, you don't hear different opinions, it's only those things that support you. For example, if I think the Miami Dolphins are the greatest football team in the world, there's going to be some folks who go, what about Man United? And I'm going to go, that's a different football team, right? And all of a sudden you get caught up in this minutia of, well, he says this and she says that and she's crazy and there's memes posted up and all this other stuff. And it's all to see who's the loudest, most obnoxious person in the room. Jesse's right. Elon has to be this eccentric person to be able to do what Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company are doing, because he's doing something that no company on earth could even fathom to know how to start doing, and they're doing it. And the way he went about it was, we're going to push the envelope every single day to the point where it's no longer stationary. So that's the thing that he has to do, and he has to be that way. Again, he's going to make a mistake because he is thinking 10 steps ahead of wherever we are, right? So even when we're criticizing step number 3, he's already on step number 17. He's just going to keep on going.
All one has to do is watch what they're doing down in Boca Chica.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, building rockets in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many people will watch that rocket to see what it does? And all of a sudden, they nuke, or not nuke it, but they basically cancel the launch, or it catches on fire, or anything else. Like, there's eyes on the world who want to know. Like think about the views now for Demo 2. How amazing that was. Everyone around the world was having their eyes fixated on what's going to happen because of just how momentous it is. It's not the first time, obviously, we've launched Americans into space on American soil, but it's been a decade or nearly a decade since we've done it. So to see them do it, to see them successfully do it, every check mark they wanted to get done was checked off without any kind of incident to our knowledge. And here it is. They brought the rocket back stage 1. They've got the astronauts into the ISS. Everything so far has been a great success, and that's only the beginning stages of what their long-term mission is, which is to eventually land people on Mars.
And SpaceX is now a household name.
Yeah.
True. Right. And they've done something that was so impossible. Now I barely even tune in. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a SpaceX launch in 3 hours? I'm like, I kind of want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
What do you mean it didn't land on the drone ship properly? I thought they figured that out already.
Yeah.
What was that, Ian? Sorry.
I was going to say, that's the only tragedy about how good they are at it, is they've now made it routine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still mind-blowing to watch them land just a single Falcon booster. It's just like, what?
they make it look easy, even though it's not. Whoops.
Yeah, but I'm like, I don't watch every launch now just because, oh yeah, they're fine. They're going to do it. If I just want to put one last point into this, because this has been a very fascinating part of the discussion, the whole Tesla Q thing and that super powerful negative critique, this force where they're just constantly attacking everything that Musk does, has created something equally as bad on the other side. I don't know if it's fair to say equally bad, but something very concerning that really has bothered me all along is the effect of creating the super fans, who feel like it's their life's work, that they have to go out and attack any kind of criticism against Musk or his companies. And this feeds back to what Zac and Jesse were saying. It's like, well, how do you have a healthy feedback loop, to correct the path of the company if anything you say against them gets shot down by these people? And, me as someone who is, part of the larger EV community and likes to push all of the different brands, I run into this all the time where people are like, the people take me aside at EV events and say, we really like Tesla and what they're doing, but like to try and talk to Tesla owners sometimes it's like it's impossible because you don't want to hear about any other brand or everything else is just trash compared to it. It just has to be put on such a pedestal. This really has bothered me over the years. It's kind of like you can be a huge fan of Tesla, as I am, and we all are, but I don't think you have to be to the exclusion of everything else. And the common defense I hear is, the defense I hear all the time is, well, yeah, but they're attacked so viciously. Like we have to defend. Yeah, I know, but not like rabid dogs. There's got to be some sort of a middle ground, right?
So my question for you is, we do the show every week, and we're looking for those companies that we would love to talk about more. And we've only found a handful, to be honest, companies that are doing, kind of cutting edge, new technology, innovative companies. Most of these companies, I would love to talk great about Ford. I'd love to talk great about GM or VW. I honestly can't. And so my question is, what are these companies you're talking about?
Well, you're right. Nobody's at the level of Tesla, obviously. But
I mean, what company out there is doing it for the right reasons? Like, I want to follow that company. What company is that?
I would argue right now VW is. I mean, they've got a huge amount of challenges, but I think they, at least 5-6 years ago, committed themselves to a course where they want to electrify their entire fleet. Their goal was originally 2025 at the rate they're going. I have a hard time believing they're going to be anywhere close to getting the majority of it. But I think certainly they'll be the closest to following in Tesla's footsteps at this point. And you see little tendrils from the other companies. And I'm not saying they're doing it for the right reason. Pretty much everybody else, Nissan being an exception with the Leaf, they were one of the early ones, but they really haven't done much with it since. I'd love to see them do more. But everybody else is being dragged into this kicking and screaming. And even though the reasons are wrong and we can't admire them morally because they're being dragged into it, they haven't volunteered for this. The fact of the matter is we have to some extent, if you're not going to actively encourage or cheer them on, you can't at least actively discourage them. Because if we're going to get anywhere close to the volume of vehicles converted to electrification in the time frame that we need, and we all know that we've got about 10 years left on the clock before we have a massive reduction in CO2 if we're going to make it. So if we want to achieve that, we need all the automakers on board. So
I disagree.
You're right. Right?
I got to disagree on two fronts. First of all, I can't back a company that you just said you have trouble backing them morally. I don't want to back a company unless I can get behind what their message is and what they're trying to do.
Right.
So that's my first problem. My second problem is you say we need all these companies. We need people making cars, but look at history. Look at history, and it wasn't that a whole bunch of companies made any particular product. It was usually that one or two companies took the lead. Others then tried to fill in behind. But let's talk about, I don't know, cell phones back in the 90s. We weren't like, we need dozens of companies making cell phones. We turned out to not need that many companies making cell phones. So I don't think it has to be that there's dozens of companies making cars, because I don't think there will be dozens of companies making cars.
And to get to the point too about that they're trying to do it, but yet at the same time that they haven't been able to achieve it. There's no excuse in my mind for them to not have achieved their goals if they have roughly the same period of time that Tesla had between, say, even Model S to Model 3. I mean, and in the meantime, they put out the Model X. It's just and that's a company in small scale. I agree. It's not, they didn't put out, a ton of Model X's or even to this day, a ton of Model 3s. It's a lot, but it's not, again, to the level of other car manufacturers, but they haven't even come close. If they were close, I would be like, okay, they're trying. But it just seems like either they're so inept at creating electric vehicles, or they just don't want to. And that's where I kind of come at it with Volkswagen. It's just like, what is taking so long?
There's two good points there. The first is the EPA standards that the Obama administration had put out forward. So we're going to have more fuel efficient vehicles by this certain deadline. And then this current administration, I'll never say their name, went ahead and basically pulled that all back. So we're just going to go back to the way it was before. So legacy automakers go, whew, great, we dodged the bullet there. When ideally, that's not the way you want to go about this. And the other problem is, when you have these legacy automakers who don't have demands by their consumers, because if I'm a consumer and I have the conscious choice of hybrid, EV, or gas engine, if my purchasing power is always whether or not I walk off the lot with one of those three choices. Now, if you're a legacy automaker and you currently offer me a hybrid or a strictly an ICE vehicle, my inclination is because I want to help the planet get better. I would certainly choose hybrid over the alternative. But if you offer them three options where you go, here's the legacy component, here's the mid-step component with the hybrid, and then full-on electric go all the way through. If you made it cost competitive, where the difference from one to the other was almost negligible, the number of people who would go electric, if the infrastructure is there, because they know that their cost benefit is going to be increased in their favor. They know that the cost of owning the vehicle over time is going to be less expensive. The resale value will actually be greater than that of a nice car. If you literally gave them those two options, there's no question the ICE car sits on the lot collecting dust and dirt and sand and gravel, while the ICE cars, they can't keep them in the lot fast enough off the trucks.
The only fly in the ointment with that is the dealer network.
True.
Right.
And that's part of it. And certainly some of the laws that are passed in different states that make it difficult for, like we talked about Texas with direct sales and things like that. But I also feel like the automakers themselves, because they've built their companies solely based on one kind of car, that they've never pursued a different avenue, despite the fact, and let me give one little credit here to General Motors. When they had the EV1 many years ago, had they not killed the program, which to this day is one of the dumbest things any automaker's ever done, they could be in the position that Tesla is today, being a powerhouse for EV ownership. But they chose to kill the program, and then everyone who drove that car was mystified and angry. Why would you take this away from me?
Well,
and
Kill the electric car.
Right.
You know why? This ties back to where we were a half an hour ago with the discussion over hydrogen. One of the biggest influences and the reason that thing was killed, if you've watched Who Killed the Electric Car, was the whole, the California Air Resources Board, right? At the end, you got, they were all big into battery-powered electric cars, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, what about this hydrogen angle, right? This could be good. We should look at all the alternative
Bush
fuel.
administration had that, yeah.
Of course, who was behind that? That was big oil all the way. That's exactly how they veered the entire ship off course.
Follow the money, baby.
Exactly. So
and that's why even Bob,
because of that whole decision with the cardboard to explore that option instead.
I mean, and California, thankfully, has led the way for a lot of these things that we're seeing now, where they're the ones saying, look, our pollution, especially in Southern California, is terrible. We have to clean up our air. And for as large economy as California has, they had this problem first and foremost more than any other state in the country. And they knew they had to do something. So they had stringent requirements for their vehicles sold in that state, and manufacturers like, well, we don't want to do that because it's going to be hard to sell in your state. And go, well, then we don't want your car here. You have to meet our standards. So it's great that there was a governance in California that at the time, when all this was happening, they said, no, we're going to push that boundary. We want to make sure we have an environment that our kids can grow up in where they're not basically looking up 2 feet in the air and there's just a layer of smog over their head. We have to fix that problem.
And you don't have to look very far over the last few months to see that the air quality in many of these large areas has certainly improved because of the pandemic situation.
Yep.
If you take all the cars and you stop driving them, what happens? The air cleans up. So you make them all electric, and we can have these beautiful blue skies all the time.
I'm with Zac on
but
this
sadly, once this is all over, people are going to go back to their old ways, and gas, it's going to come back.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but I'm with Zac on this one. I think we're actually better served having fewer manufacturers. Let those jobs certainly go from one company to another, but we don't need as many legacy automakers in the world. We just don't. Because
There is a good chance. I mean, if you look at the
There won't
auto
be.
manufacturers right now, like Ford, for example, they just posted a $2 billion loss, and they're on the books for reaching between 5 and 7 billion by the second quarter. It's not looking rosy for those guys.
I mean, if you just look at history, there's no way for most of these companies to last. I mean, I'll bet you in 8 years we'll be looking at Ford, GM, Toyota, Honda gone.
Or all merged into one.
And for what it's worth, there should be no bailout. I'm sorry. I know
Yeah,
it was good. It was good to do it the first time, and I understand why it was necessary. So that saved a lot of jobs in a very bad economy. But now, forget it. Let them go. Because they've been beholden to their stakeholders and their board of directors more than they've been beholden to the world at large. I'm sorry.
There's a very good chance that if these other manufacturers really don't get their you-know-what together and really get some compelling electric cars on the market, that they may just say, you know what, we're just going to write it all off. We're going to let it go. We're going to go back to our own way. And Tesla is the ultimate benefactor from that because people are looking for efficient electric vehicles. Tesla's going to have the whole gamut of cars. They're going to have the best prices going around. They have the infrastructure network. They have the dealer network, which is non-toxic. The buying experience is actually enjoyable comparatively to the other guys. Tesla could benefit and end up being one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. Not just from a market cap perspective, because they already are now. They've surpassed Toyota. But I'm talking about legitimately making more cars than Toyota does.
Oh, they will. I mean, let's talk about the other big elephant in the room, $1,000 a share. Why do you think they are worth as much as Toyota, or at least were for a day or two? Because the market is seeing that if you look at the numbers, they will be outselling all these guys before long. It seems impossible now when you're at this part of the curve. We're just at kind of the knee of it, but this is an S curve, and we're about to take off.
Yeah. Well, I hope it does, because I mean, if we're really going to replace the majority of ICE vehicles being produced today, we've got to talk of tens of millions of cars being built, not hundreds of thousands. So it's got to climb really, really steep if Tesla is going to take a big part of that. And I mean, we're still talking, it's still a couple of years to build each factory, right? So
you still got Toyota saying, well, we're not doing battery electric cars. I mean, we're still going to stick with the hybrids. I'm like, how stupid are you?
I also wonder if this pandemic has taught us anything about how valuable work from home jobs are. So are more people going to be able to not have to drive or at least not drive great distances for work because they can work from home more often? I mean, I know a lot of companies who the majority of their employees worked in an office, but they had the resources to make them work from home. And now they're using it and they're finding we're just as efficient, if not more productive. We don't have major overhead for real estate space. We can actually save money because then we can divert that towards our tech resources to give people devices and computers and that sort of thing. So it would not surprise me if we also end up having fewer vehicles necessary on the road, which is why these, robo-taxi programs and things like that are not some fictional thing that could happen. They really can happen because most people may go big city, small city, in between. You may not need a vehicle until you actually have to use one. So why pay $60,000 for something to sit in a parking lot outside your house when you just go, well, I just need one and now I get it. There's a reason why Uber and Lyft took off when they did, because it's cheaper just to basically rent a car for 10 minutes to get from A to B versus having to have your own car. There's no overhead.
Well, this goes to that point of technology where it's hard to picture something until it happens. Even though we're in this bubble of Tesla right now, I still hear the doubt that robo-taxis are going to work or that robo-cars are going to work. I got to just poll you guys. Like, how many of you guys think that cars will be able to drive themselves without a driver in the next few years?
I raise my hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to go halfway up there.
We're getting there.
Regional, because I think in anywhere where you don't have severe weather, it's going to happen pretty fast. I think.
I'm just asking how many think it'll happen in the next few years, and I'm hearing you saying like we'll get there, whatever. That's because you haven't been able to imagine it. Now you may be right. I'm not saying I have the lockdown on whether that's going to happen or not. But without being able to imagine it, we can't imagine what life will be like with that solution. And it's going to change. If we're right, if autonomy is going to happen, it will change everything.
Right. Well, and
you guys did a very good video. What was it, a year or two ago? Where you talked about that little series. Yeah, they were wonderful series, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, but to get back to imagination as well, every single Tesla car on the road right now, and practically every electric car on the road right now, is helping to change people's minds about EVs, because it isn't so much that we need to, necessarily increase the factories. We do, but we need to change people's minds as well. And Tesla has been kind of balancing this pretty well of convincing more people to buy EVs. I mean, I think if you go back 5 years and you had said, like, are there this many people who would buy an EV who then ended up turning out to buy, like, say, a Model 3, I think that it would have been rather surprising. But basically, every moment that these cars exist and people can see them and start to ask questions and get rides in them, it's going to start to change the perspective. And at some point, there will be a turning point. There will be a critical mass, and it's going to completely alter the way that everything is thought of and works.
And this is why, when you mentioned earlier in the show, why children totally get it, is because children know how to use that little brain, that muscle in their head, which is imagination. Whereas when you get to a certain age, that usually dies.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting very close. I mean, when this million-mile battery thing happens and the cost that's been floating around at $80 per kilowatt hour, I mean, at that point, once you reach the cost parity, and this is the thing that's been talking about for many years now, once the cost parity arrives, that you're at the same level, if not lower than an ICE car, it's game over. And if the other manufacturers are not making those investments to match what Tesla's doing, it's game over for them too.
And once we start actually counting the full cost of fossil fuels, I mean, again, we're subsidizing them and we're not counting their health costs. But if we were to, I mean, after this pandemic, maybe hopefully we'll start to count the actual true cost of burning gasoline. And when you enter that into the equation, we've already won that economic battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's all it would take. The minute you factor that in, it's done. It's over.
Right.
Yeah.
We just need the right mouthpieces to send out that message.
Right.
Because right now the news media is not doing anybody any favors.
Right. And we've been seeing that people will spend more money for an EV. I mean,
that's
just
true.
based on
Tesla
the trade.
stretch is a real thing, right?
Yeah, because I mean, people will want to get more, and honestly, you're getting more. You're getting entertainment in your car. You're getting all sorts of different new activities that you're kind of unlocking. Even though you could do those things in a gas car, it's just such a different mindset and such a different feel. Just being able to plug your car in at home, like, forget the energy savings for a minute. Like, people still want them just for their brand and for all of the other features that kind of go into it, even just the safety aspect of it.
I mean, that's why we're doing the electric performance race car. We're racing a Model 3 up Pikes Peak in August because we want to show people that, you've grown up with ICE cars, you've grown up with gas guzzlers, and you think that's the only way to win a race. But actually, EVs are amazing. And by taking a Model 3 performance, basically what you would drive right off the lot at a Tesla showroom, that is basically the car we're driving up Pikes Peak. And hopefully we're going to walk away with the record.
Right.
Nice.
Oh, looking forward to it. So keep us posted on that.
Thanks.
Well, the show has gone on for basically an hour and a half now. So
You're
I want to say
Joe Rogan territory now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it happens. On average, our podcast lasts about an hour and 20 minutes. But, obviously we're very enthusiastic about this kind of stuff. We could talk about it all night. But unfortunately, the viewers and the listeners don't have that kind of attention span these days. But that's okay. Listen, guys, I want to say thank you for joining us. We need to do this again. These conversations are truly wonderful. It's nice to hear different perspectives. We're trying to branch out a little bit more this year and get different guests on the show. Like last week, you had Eli Burton, great guy, has some great views on things and stuff. So so I want to say thank you for joining in. As always, we always give everybody the opportunity to plug whatever the heck you want. Tell viewers, listeners where they can find you. I mean, obviously, if you're in the Tesla community, you probably already know about Zac and Jesse, but go ahead, guys, say whatever you'd like.
We've got Tesla Time News every Monday and In-Depth every Friday, but also head over to Electric Performance Channel, which is our new race car channel, so you can check out our driver, Blake Fuller, and every week he tells you about what he's doing to the race car to get it ready for Pikes Peak, which is August 30th, and hopefully we're going to win in our class with the Model 3 going up Pikes Peak, so we've got our fingers crossed for that.
Yeah,
well, and thank you so much for having us on, Trevor.
I know, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Anytime, guys. So we'll have to do it again. We'll try not to be too strange-ish. I know we got our own things going on and stuff. So
definitely.
All right, and then we have Eric and Ian. So where can guys chat with you on the internet?
Sorry for my tech issues. Technology's been so fun. You guys can find me on Twitter at the handle ECFix. That's ECFIX. Like Zach, I've sort of taken a hiatus from Twitter for a bit to kind of muffle the noise a bit, but you can find me on there very often.
All right, Ian, how about you?
All right. Well, on Twitter, it's at Ian Pavelko. The handle is Mad Hungarian. And on Tesla Owners Online, you can find me at the same handle, Mad Hungarian. If you have any technical questions, particularly wheels and tires, I know a little bit about that. I can always help out. And normally I talk about my t-shirt program. I'm going to use today's show to plug a little something that maybe not all of you have heard. The company I work for, Fasco, maker of fast wheels and the fast EV line that Trevor and I have been plugging along there. We're coming out with a couple of new models specifically for Model Y. So if you've got a Model Y in your possession or on order for this fall, keep an eye out because we're going to have our replica R241 in a dedicated 19.5-inch version, specifically load rated for the Model Y. And same thing with the EV01, our EV Aero wheel. We have a dedicated 19.5 arriving this fall, specifically built for Model Y. So keep your eyes open for that.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. We're supposed to be getting Model Ys hopefully by the end of this week here in Toronto. Yeah. Delivery started in Vancouver last weekend, so we're about a week behind. So we're looking forward to that. So as soon as I get my hand on one of those, I'm going to do it in a video. Anyways, well, you guys can follow me on Twitter. The handle is Tesla Owners Online. Don't forget to check out the forum, TeslaOwnersOnline.com. Best place to be discussing Tesla stuff. I want to say thanks to our sponsors, Evan X, Dulaban Insurance, and the great guys at Fine Lab Ceramic Coatings. Keeps my car nice and clean. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys next time, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody.